In the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, few things intrigue me more than the Shadow animatronics. They first appeared as an Easter egg in the second game, but have since reappeared in almost every subsequent installment. So, to make sense of it all, I decided to start with Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the origin of these figures. The two key characters in question are Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie? Actually, his name is Requifask, or something similar, but let's move on. In the second game, these entities are merely Easter eggs that function similarly to Golden Freddy from the first game. They appear and then crash the game. These creatures are essentially reskins of existing characters. Shadow Freddy is a dark purple version of Withered Golden Freddy, while Shadow Bonnie is a black version with 2 extra teeth from Toy Bonnie. And that's about it for now. Things change in the third game, where Shadow Freddy plays a crucial role in the narrative. He is the one who lures the 4 main animatronics to the safe room, where William appears and destroys them during the Follow Me minigames across 4 nights. Notably, he is absent from Night 5, when we control what appears to be the spirit of Golden Freddy. He also makes rare appearances in the office beside us. Shadow Bonnie remains important as well, serving as an essential piece of the game's good ending. After Night 4, during the Follow Me minigame where we control Foxy, we can find Shadow Bonnie in one of the pizzeria's hallways. He acts as a clue for the upcoming Happiest Day minigame. On Night 5, we can find a Shadow Bonnie figure. Clicking it takes us to the Shadow Bonnie minigame, where we traverse all the previous minigames, glitching between them using Shadow Bonnie's powers, until we eventually reach a purple, black, and white room. There, we find the final missing MCI child, deliver the cake, and complete the minigame. In short, the 2 mysterious figures from the previous game now played a vital role in the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 3. While Shadow Freddy seemingly helps William destroy the animatronics' bodies, Shadow Bonnie helps the souls trapped within them break free. At least, that was the most common interpretation at the time. Speaking of shadow creatures, the third game features others that are rarely discussed. Understandably so, given their lack of importance to the lore. These include Shadow Balloon Boy and Shadow Puppet, both of which appear in the Happiest Day minigames, as well as Shadow Cupcake, which appears in the Happiest Day minigames, the Follow Me minigame, and on the in-game cameras, serving a role similar to the Shadow Bonnie figure on the desk. Essentially, while playing the Follow Me minigame during Night 2, the player receives a clue to look for Shadow Cupcakes. Clicking on all of them unlocks the Chica's Party minigame, which is crucial for the Happiest Day event. Regarding the fourth game, while appearances are few, the significance is immense. The elephant in the room nightmare is undoubtedly a distorted version of the Fredbear animatronic, who itself is a version of Golden Freddy and Fredbear. This alone suggests that Nightmare is a version of Shadow Freddy, and thus a distorted version of Golden Freddy. Furthermore, in the game files, the Nightmare mode where this character appears is labeled as Shadow Freddy, indicating a clear, direct link between the two. Additionally, during the post-night minigames, Dave Afton encounters animatronic shadows on the wall. Shadows cast from the stage that reflect the silhouettes of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. These shadows share the exact same color as the Shadow Bonnie sprite from the third game's minigame. While there are no references to the shadows in sister location, Shadow Freddy is referenced in Pizzeria Simulator. He appears in the game's intro, where Dark Freddy tries to stop the main Freddy from delivering pizzas to the children, eventually causing the entire game to glitch out. Finally, there is Lefty, a dark Freddy that traps the puppet. Although not technically a shadow, this reference is worth noting. Finally, in Ultimate Custom Night, Shadow Bonnie and Nightmare reappear, and XOR, or Shadow Dee Dee, is introduced. She is a shadowy version of Dee Dee, capable of spawning any animatronic during the night, including Shadow Bonnie. With the end of the Scott era and the transition to the modern era, many potential shadows were introduced. To clear up the confusion, I'll list them. Shadow Mangle, or Blacklight Mangle, appears in Help Wanted's hard mode during the Mangle vent level, not as a Mangle skin, but as a separate enemy appearing alongside the standard version. Then there are Dark Freddy and Dark Foxy, both also in hard mode. Dark Freddy appears in the Parts and Service hard mode level where you have to repair Freddy, while Dark Foxy appears in the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 hard mode level. Good grief, these characters are a headache. In Special Delivery, Shadow Bonnie returns as the game's main antagonist. If you collect too much Dark Remnant, the Shadow Bonnie figure appears. Speaking of which, Shadow Bonnie also appears as a trading card in Security Breach, revealing that the general public is aware of this creature's existence. With all the shadows and potential shadows revealed, we can begin to theorize. The first point I want to address is the exclusion of Shadow Puppet, Shadow Balloon Boy, and Shadow Cupcake. The Shadow name and designation were only assigned in the character encyclopedia book. They do not appear in the game files, where the characters are simply listed as Puppet, BB, and Cupcake. While one might try to defend these characters or the importance and credibility of the character encyclopedia, it is crucial to note that the entries for Shadow Puppet and Shadow BB are incorrect, as the page displays images of Phantom Puppet and Phantom BB. This represents a glaring error in the very page cited as evidence. As for Dark Freddy, Dark Foxy, and Shadow Mangle, I believe they should be treated exactly like all the hard mode character skins. Just as the black light variants are not considered shadows, these characters should not be classified as such either. With that in mind, we can try to explain what the shadows are. To do so, I'll look at what we know about a specific shadow, Shadow Bonnie. As previously mentioned, he is the star of Special Delivery. At one point in the game, we can collect Remnant, purple energy orbs, but black spheres can also appear among them. This is Dark Remnant. When enough Dark Remnant is collected, Shadow Bonnie is summoned, which reveals his origin. Shadow Bonnie is a figure made of Dark Remnant, plain and simple. The question remains, what is Dark Remnant? And if the explanation is so simple, why am I making this video right now? Dark Remnant is agony. According to what we know from the media, agony is a sort of accumulation of dark thoughts and sinister feelings. It is usually created during a tragic event, such as the MCI, the DCI, or the Big Bite, to clarify. Since many people get this mixed up, while Remnant is the remnant of a living being's soul, agony consists of that soul's dark thoughts, pain, and suffering. Much of this explanation comes from the Fazbear Frights books. For instance, in the story Hide and Seek, the protagonist Toby tries to beat an arcade game called Hide and Seek. Because Toby is a frustrated person, he takes his anger out on the game, destroying it. This unleashes Shadow Bonnie into the world, a creature of agony that feeds on Toby's dark thoughts and frustration, growing stronger and larger as the story progresses. In short, a shadow animatronic is a creature of agony. It possesses no soul, only pain, suffering, and terrible thoughts. That is the basis for understanding the shadows. But now we must ask, they are all the same? Of the shadow list I presented, only a few truly belong to the shadow category. Specifically, Shadow Freddy, Shadow Bonnie, and Shadow Dee Dee. However, if we look closely, one thing becomes apparent. Only one of these three is actually a shadow, or rather, only one is actually called Shadow. Shadow Bonnie is referred to as Requifask, and Shadow Dee Dee is called XOR. Both have names made of random characters, as if Scott had punched his keyboard and the resulting letters became the names for these creatures. This is an interesting behavior we've seen him exhibit before. In FNaF World, there is a glitched area where, by breaking the game and traversing parts of the map that weren't meant to be accessible, one can find enemies with this exact type of random character name. Furthermore, these enemies are all glitched, appearing like ghosts tearing through reality, something our friend Shadow Bonnie also does. This contrasts with Shadow Freddy, whom we see following the map boundaries in the first game, luring animatronics and moving at the same speed. Shadow Bonnie also appears under his original name, whereas Shadow Freddy appears with the name Shadow Freddy. If Scott had wanted us to link these characters, wouldn't it have been easier to just call Shadow Bonnie, thereby connecting him to the actual Shadow Freddy? Their differences don't end there either. In current media, specifically the movie, Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy are distinctly different entities. Shadow Freddy is a suit stored backstage at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, while Shadow Bonnie is truly a haunting presence or something more. Another point I want to raise is the lack of counterparts for Shadow Bonnie or Shadow Dee Dee compared to Shadow Freddy. Shadow Bonnie looks just like the standard Bonnie but is black with white eyes and a white mouth, plus an extra row of teeth. Meanwhile, Shadow Dee Dee is an exact copy of Dee Dee, just in dark colors. We never see Shadow Bonnie take on other forms, like Nightmare, Funtime, Rockstar, or even classic versions, and the same obviously applies to Dee Dee. But Shadow Freddy? It's common to see various versions, the withered version in the second game, the classic version in the first game reinforced by the movie, the Nightmare version in the fourth game, and Lefty in the sixth game. They all follow the concept of a Dark Freddy linked to Golden Freddy. Talking about it, let's talk about these connections. In the second game, Shadow Freddy looks just like withered Golden Freddy, only purple and with white pupils, clearly linking the two. Golden Freddy isn't in the third game, but in the fourth, as I mentioned, Nightmare is a distorted version of Nightmare Fredbear, who is Golden Freddy, further connecting the two. However, beyond that link, another character shares an equally important connection with Nightmare, Nightmarion. Nightmarion replaces Nightmare in the game's Halloween mode, sharing the same jump scare and behavior. Even though it's said to be non-canon, its appearance in Custom Night, and especially in the new era of games, makes the character more than canon to the story. Something I've always wondered is why Nightmare was replaced by Nightmarion. If you think about it, all the animatronics in the Halloween DLC are versions of the classic animatronics. Jacko Bonnie and Jacko Chica are clearly versions of Nightmare Bonnie and Chica, and Nightmare Mangle is a parallel to Nightmare Foxy, just as Mangle is a parallel to Foxy. The only flaw is Plushtrap turning into Nightmare Balloon Boy. However, curiously enough, it was the only one considered canon by Scott at the time. But then Pizzeria Simulator was released, revealing a dark Freddy with a very strong connection to the puppet, given that Lefty was used to capture the puppet. Furthermore, the opening minigame of Pizzeria Simulator is a near-perfect recreation of Take Cake to the Children, featuring a Freddy delivering pizza or cake to kids. This minigame was even referenced in the Pizzeria Simulator teasers. Suddenly, everything made sense. It seems Shadow Freddy has a strong connection not only to Golden Freddy, but also to the puppet. As for the reason why, we'll get to that. It is in UCN that the most significant connections appear. The game features Nightmare, Nightmarion, the puppet, Golden Freddy, and even Fredbear. Yet Shadow Freddy is absent. The voice lines for Nightmare and Nightmarion offer similar parallels. If we were to follow the theory that Shadow Freddy is a creature of agony, much like Shadow Bonnie, then his creation would be the result of the agony caused by William's actions. However, as previously noted, Shadow Freddy behaves like a standard animatronic, much like Freddy, Bonnie, and even Golden Freddy. Finally, to wrap up this part of the video, I want to mention that in the most recent games, specifically all the Steel Wool titles, Nightmarion plushies can be seen everywhere, from the virtual reality setting to the Mega Pizzaplex. One even appears during Princess Quest IV. Curiously, this plush is not labeled Nightmarion, but simply Nightmare. There are also, in addition to the aggressive staff bots found in the Pizzaplex basement, the Nightmare staff bots, which display characteristics and obvious references to Nightmarion. These bots are used and controlled by Glitchtrap in much the same way that Shadow Freddy is apparently controlled by William in the Follow Me minigame, serving as yet another reference connecting Nightmarion to Nightmare and Shadow Freddy. With this, I can finally wrap up this part of the video explaining the differences between Shadow Freddy and the other Shadows, since they're usually lumped together as the same thing. Now, regarding my theory, I actually have two interpretations. Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Dee Dee are easy to explain. They are essentially creatures of agony, much like the Into the Pit Spring Bonnie and the other animatronics created by the agony of the MCI. These two shadows are the same. Agony-born creations stemming from William's actions. They could stem solely from the MCI, solely from the DCI, or, as I believe, be an amalgamation of agony from both events. However, I believe Shadow Freddy is an actual suit. And I know this isn't a common theory, so go easy on me in the comments. I saw an excellent video by the channel Unwithered Truth. I highly recommend watching it, but to summarize briefly, they argue that Shadow Freddy isn't just another shadow like the others, but rather the vessel for Cassidy's vengeful soul. I know he isn't claiming there's a literal purple Freddy suit somewhere, but I think I can combine both theories. In the future, perhaps in the next video, I want to finally talk about the MCI, Cassidy, and the Vengeful Spirit, though I won't dwell on that too much here. My theory builds upon Unwithered Truth's theory and expands on it. In 1985, 5 children were abducted by William Afton while he was wearing the Spring Bonnie suit. Though they weren't all taken at once, Cassidy was one of them. While trying to study Remnant, William was actually investigating his biggest current problem: what had happened to his son, Dave Afton. To that end, he developed the nightmare chambers to replicate the nightmares his son experienced, using Fazbear robots, or prototypes of them, as a base. Regardless of whether you believe in illusion discs or illusion gas, these animatronics were modified into their Nightmare versions. That is why William in Custom Night could see them, and Nightmare reveals himself to be the embodiment of the consequences of his wicked deeds. Beyond the prototypes, he uses Fredbear. The goal is to create the perfect victim, a replica of his son so that he can put him back together. After a year of suffering and agony, Cassidy dies and possesses the Fredbear suit, thereby establishing the communication William wanted between her and Dave. However, she does not have the same connection as Dave to the Fredbear suit. As many know, Golden Freddy is clearly a ghostly apparition, a false image of Fredbear according to the location's Freddy, whereas Shadow Freddy could very well be the actual animatronic. What I mean is that just as Elizabeth changed Baby's eyes from blue to green and Charlie added tears to the puppet, I believe Cassidy changed Fredbear's color from yellow to purple, symbolizing William Afton. This creates a distinction. The Golden Freddy apparition is Dave. His jump scare consisting only of the head attacking symbolizes the bite of 83. He does not participate in the Follow Me event because that event concerns the MCI, a replica of the original act with slightly different rules. This also explains Happiest Day as a replica of Dave's birthday, but this time a happy one. Furthermore, the child at the end of the table, given that the mask at the end is a Golden Freddy mask, would be Dave, not Cassidy. That is why the vengeful spirit is Cassidy, not Dave. During Happiest Day, Dave is freed, but Cassidy remains on Earth to haunt and attack William. This also explains Follow Me, since curiously Shadow Freddy appears in every minigame except the one featuring the vengeful spirit. Why? Because they are the same entity, Cassidy. This aligns perfectly with the theory that Cassidy is a mirror image of Dave. Nightmare, who is Cassidy, is a distorted version of Fredbear, who is Dave. William got what he wanted. A distorted replica of his son to align his memories. William took Cassidy's happy memories and transferred them to Dave, thereby bringing him back. Cassidy lost her happiest day so that Dave could receive it, as if Dave replaced Cassidy in all her happy memories. This would explain Cassidy's strange connection to Golden Freddy. It is as if the two characters merged into a single being, a single mind, and a single personality. That is why Cassidy is still associated with Golden Freddy, even though she does not possess the animatronic, because Dave and Cassidy are essentially one and the same. I'm sure this part was confusing, so I hope you rewatch the video to better grasp all the evidence. However, here's a summary regarding the existence of the shadow creatures and Golden Freddy. All shadow animatronics are born from the agony of evil deeds. Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Dee Dee are examples of this. Shadow Freddy, on the other hand, is a unique case. In 1985, 5 children went missing. One of them was Cassidy, who spent a full year in the nightmare chambers from the 4th game before dying in 1986, as revealed in Help Wanted 2. During this time, she possessed the Fredbear animatronic, which was being used to torment her, and encountered the spirit of Dave trapped within the suit. However, Dave's spirit was not bound to the Fredbear suit itself. Instead, he appeared as a hallucination of the Golden Bear, taking the form of the Freddy animatronic from the location where he was present. Cassidy, conversely, was trapped inside the Fredbear suit, most likely because she had been spring-locked within it. Cassidy's agony, much like Elizabeth's and Charlie's, altered Fredbear's appearance, shifting it to the color of her killer, and thus creating the Shadow Freddy form. Despite this, Cassidy's and Dave's souls were so deeply intertwined that they were effectively regarded as a single entity. Both Dave and Cassidy formed this connection off-screen, though we can observe glimpses of it in the survival logbook, where both souls communicated with Michael, showing him the nightmare chambers Cassidy had endured, intermingled with memories of Dave's final days. Cassidy then helped the MCI souls break free from their suits to attack William during the Follow Me minigame, even though they ultimately ended up trapped within Molten Freddy. In the end, the MCI souls helped Dave move on by replacing his memory with Cassidy's happiest memory, thereby bringing about the happiest day and allowing all the souls to move forward, except for Cassidy's, which attaches itself to William as a shadow of his deeds, ultimately manifesting as the vengeful spirit in UCN. Okay, that was a massive information dump, but with it, I connect Golden Freddy, Dave, Shadow Freddy, Cassidy, and Nightmare, all within a well-told story that's heavy enough to be compelling. However, I spent a large part of this video drawing connections involving the puppet and Nightmare. and that was the hardest part to integrate into my theory. The links between Shadow Freddy and the puppet are incredibly strong. For starters, the Follow Me and Save Them minigames are strikingly similar, almost parallel to one another. Their layouts are so alike that if I described them, it would be nearly impossible to tell which one I was talking about. We're in a Freddy Fazbear's pizzeria controlling an animatronic, Freddy, and roaming the establishment, encountering supernatural things that shouldn't be there, like puddles of a liquid that might be blood. We can also find the animatronics present at that location, but the real objective of the minigame is to follow a mysterious figure that seems to be leading us somewhere. We follow this figure through the restaurant until suddenly William appears and shuts us down. Tell me that isn't a parallel and I'll call you crazy. The only differences are the restaurant we're in and the mysterious figures we follow. Shadow Freddy versus the puppet. The connections don't stop there either. In the Give Gifts, Give Life minigame, the puppet places the children's souls into the animatronic bodies. Whereas in Follow Me, Shadow Freddy does the exact opposite. And here's the most curious part, the thing that blew my mind when I thought about it. Both of them are doing what William should have done. When Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out, many people blamed the puppet for putting the children's bodies into the animatronics. She gave them life by essentially trapping their souls inside the robotic shells. A truly terrible act, and something William ought to have been the one to do. The same thing happened during Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Everyone blames Shadow Freddy for luring the animatronics to the safe room so William could destroy them. However, looking back now, it all makes sense. Both the puppet and Shadow Freddy are doing William's bidding. They both reveal this in UCN through the lines spoken by their nightmare versions. The reason why they have to do this is quite complex, but it could be something similar to the kind of a control Michael has over the puppet and the toys in the movie. An answer I hope to find in the third film. This explains the connection between them. They aren't the same animatronic, let alone the same soul. However, they were designed with similar characteristics and destinies. I hope you enjoyed this interpretation of the Shadows, Golden Freddy, and the puppet. For those who haven't watched the Unwithered Truth video, I encourage you to do so. You'll have a much better understanding of the connections discussed here after seeing the mirror theory. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.